A conservative economist, during a Fox News appearance, actually admitted that they don't really care if people get paid enough to survive, especially if you're somebody who needs it the most. In fact, take a look at this next video. This is Art Laffer.
For those people, Sandra, who are coming into the labor force brand fresh, not old timers who've been around for a while, the poor, the minorities, the disenfranchised, those with less education, young people who haven't had the job experience, these people aren't worth $15 an hour in most cases. And so therefore, when you have a $15 an hour minimum wage, they don't get that first job. They don't get the requisite skills to earn above the minimum wage. And after a few years, they become unemployable. And after becoming unemployable, they become hostile. And that what you'll find happening is this technology has created an underclass of people who are really just bid out of the labor market and will remain out of the labor market for most of their lives. And this, I think, is just a tragedy. I love the technology, but the technology is replacing the jobs for these people. And it's a killer. It's a killer for just the people who need the help the most.
These people aren't worth 15 bucks an hour in most cases. The poor, the disenfranchised. No, not worth 15 bucks an hour because they're going to kill jobs. Hey, you realize that it's not actually the technology that's the problem. No, it is the greed. Did you know, like, once upon a time, I remember we were talking about how technology was actually going to make people's lives easier and make it so that people would not have to work as hard. People could actually even work less. Now, obviously, that hasn't happened because the machines are, of course, they're in the hands of the very few capital holders. And by the way, if there's a way that they can make the machines more profitable than people, they would have already replaced people with machines. And at some point, real soon, we're going to have that conversation of how do we make it so that automation, in the time of automation, that we don't have a permanent impoverished underclass. Maybe we should do something for them to avoid that little apocalypse. But anyway, all right. So now, as far as today, we work more, we're more productive, and yet somehow we make less. That is a market failure, okay? And it's a market failure because people like Art Laffer control the market. His ideas have essentially made this conservative economics, Ronald Reagan, they've basically made it a reality, okay? And so he has literally argued that, no, there are just certain people that I think that just don't deserve enough money to live. Now, again, this is not like everybody should get a yacht and their own mansion. No, this is making enough money to survive. That's it. That's what people are asking for. But no. Well, if they get $15 in minimum wage, then they're not going to be able to get a job. They're not going to get that first job. And of course, that's the assumption is, well, these are people entering the labor market. The average age of a McDonald's crew member is not 16 or 18. These are people the average age is 27 years old. They're not like fresh off out of school and, I just need a summer job so I can get some beer money. No, there are people like having to raise families on this, on minimum wage. And of course they can't do that. It's not really possible to raise a family on that. And so they don't. That's why so many people have chosen, not to get married or not to have kids, not to buy houses, not to buy new cars or anything like that. And of course have multiple jobs. And so the point is, going back to economics, right? So he's an economics guy. Laffer curve. Oh yeah, I'm so much smarter than everybody else because I came up with this thing, this curve that's supposed to explain how economics works and why. Basically, it's a way for me to just tell everybody who's poor to go fuck themselves because we're not going to pay them more. And basically, it's just an excuse here. Because here's the thing. Here's the reality of the situation. Raising wages to a living wage doesn't destroy jobs. There have been studies out there that have shown that it's had basically a negligible impact on employment and unemployment, by the way. it doesn't really affect it in any statistically significant way. But what it would do is actually allow some of these people to quit their second job because now they're actually making enough to support themselves on one job. Now, the funny thing about this discourse, by the way, is how little people are actually asking for. $15 an hour. It's really not that much. When you do the math, you work for 40 hours a week at $15 an hour. That gets you a total of $31,000. $31,200. That is before tax withholdings, which are, again, fairly significant for somebody making $30,000 an hour. And there's a reason for that, of course. But more mathematics here. If wages had kept up with inflation, just inflation, the increase of costs in the cost of goods and services, the minimum wage would actually be worth about $11.60 an hour. That is actually based off 1968 numbers when the minimum wage was at $1.60. So now, of course, the cost of goods and services goes up, and so the purchase power of the dollar has gone down, which is why you have to periodically raise the minimum wage. And we did that up until 1968, when then, of course, you had productivity, wages, and inflation break off. And so you had a stagnation of wages, barely any increases for inflation to keep up with inflation, and productivity went off the charts. And so you've all seen that great divergence chart before. And so now what's even more insane is that if wages had kept up with the level of productivity now that the average American worker produces, the minimum wage would be around somewhere $24 an hour. That would be the minimum. And yet $15 is all people are asking for, because that is just enough to be able to survive, put a roof over your head, and food on the table. What little we're asking for, people aren't laugh or say, no, you're not worth it. No, you're not worth paying that much for. Oh, are you kidding me? No. I mean, I want to help vulnerable people by giving them, jobs that don't pay enough for them to literally survive. Why are they not happy? I don't understand. What's the problem? That's the problem. And so now what's funny is that you had this divergence between productivity and wages, right? As well as inflation. Well, where is the extra money going then? Because again, people are more productive. We're making more stuff. We're doing more things. Where is the extra capital from that labor going? Well, it's actually going to the richest Americans. Jeff Bezos, for example, is blasting himself into space and getting, by the way, $10 billion in taxpayer money to do it. While we don't have fair wages, we don't have health care, child care, free education, but guess what? We do have billionaires that pay so little in taxes, it's essentially criminal. Jeff Bezos pays an effective rate of just 1% and his $99 billion fortune. That's according to recent tax documents that have come out, an explosive story from ProPublica. Great work on that, investigating how rich people are basically getting away with paying insanely low effective tax rates, way more than the average American family. So look, like when conservatives, they say, well, middle class is taxed so much. Oh God, there's so many taxes on us. Too many taxes. They're actually right. The taxes are too high on the middle class. And of course, there are regressive taxes that hit the poor as well. And so they're wrong, of course, in saying, well, that means we should cut taxes for the rich. No, the reason that your taxes are so high is because the rich don't pay theirs. And really, it's not even about taking the tax money from rich people to redistribute. No, it's just taking that money out of circulation. That's the whole point of taxes. Because again, we can already, and that's of course to prevent more inflation. And the really, like, what we could actually do is just spend money on things that help society and then tax billionaire money out of existence. That's how it actually works. But anyway, that said, more. Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg, billionaire, pays just over 1% rate and effective taxes. Elon Musk, Daddy Uwu himself, pays just over a 3% tax rate, about 3.20%. All while a typical American household pays more in taxes than it accumulated in wealth. All so you know, these companies that get away, in their CEOs, they get away with paying so little in taxes while getting, by the way, billions of dollars in federal benefits. They can afford to raise their wages. And that's why this worker shortage is actually incredibly important. So-called worker shortage. Really, it's people not wanting to go back to these terrible jobs that mistreat them and pay them under what they're worth, under their value. Because for such a long time, we have been convinced that our value is so low. In reality, we're actually doing what conservative economics were calling for a long time. Oh no, if you don't think that you should get paid so little, then maybe you should ask for more, or maybe you should negotiate, or maybe you should find better jobs. Well, we did all of those things, and now they're the ones that are crying that we refuse to work for such low wages. Total irony. Total irony. But again, they know this, okay? People like Art Laffer, conservatives, they know this, which is why the conversation that they're having right now is really about the people that they don't believe are worth paying enough to live. And unsurprisingly, you can see that they have a list of people they don't respect. The young, poor, minorities, probably add in the disabled as well. All of whom they say is, well, yeah, we can use those people. We can exploit them for money. That's capitalism. And we can exploit them by keeping them down and underpaid so that they don't organize. It's sick. It really is. Our economic system is built on sickness, a deep sociopathy where we don't care about other people. And unfortunately, the people that are running our society right now are the ones who subscribe to it, which really kind of explains a lot, doesn't it? If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.